Hello and welcome. This is Preston Rahn, and this is the training on how to get more clients and make more money in your business today. And I will be your coach and your mentor throughout the training. And one of the things that I recently did, I'm proud of, that I co-authored the book, The New Rules of Success, and it features the world's leading experts that reveal their top secrets to help you achieve your health, wealth, and lifestyle. And I kind of briefly went over some of the steps in the book here, and it became a number one best-selling book the day that we launched it in the direct marketing category. And we also hit 7 top 10 categories that same day. So I'm proud of that. And I've worked with a lot of top experts in the business world, coaching and the internet marketing world. And in fact, some of the top experts contact me when they have a need to improve their sales process. I've actually worked with some of them. I've taken leads on for them. I've used this exact same process to close deals of $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $60,000. In fact, I've closed $50,000 in one day, and I've even had people invest $20,000 paid in full. And so I'm going to teach you the exact same steps that I've used to not only close deals but help these experts out. And so I'm going to reveal these steps to you today. So this is really your road to success. And if you are ready, then let's jump into this. Now, the most common frustrations that I hear from the people that I speak to is that they say, I struggle to get my message out to my audience. I just don't have enough people to speak to. I'm not sure how to effectively generate leads today. I feel that I'm doing everything, but I'm just not getting the results that I hoped for. I see other people doing this, but it's just not working for me. I speak to people, I have enough leads to speak to, but I just keep hearing I can't afford it. And the number one most common frustration that I hear is, I just feel stuck. I'm not really sure what to do next. And I can totally relate to that. So is this you? Can you relate to any of those things? If so, then this training's for you, and I encourage you to stick around because I do want to help you get past all that so that you can get more clients and make more money in your business today. And recently I had a coaching client send me a Skype message, and she said, Preston, you're totally right. Thank you. I get distracted because I'm scared, but the distraction makes my nervous system fragile, and I get very restless and ungrounded, and it's not very healthy. I really appreciate the simplified approach that you recommend and the 3 main steps. And we're going to cover those 3 steps here today. Actually, after only our first coaching session, I was in a high, like I could conquer the world. So thank you for your excellent training and your coaching. So let me ask you this. What's holding you back? Why haven't you reached your goals and your success yet? Well, what I find is that most people are just following the wrong plan, or they really have no plan, and that leads to worry, doubt, fear, procrastination, and frustration. Those are the things that really just keep holding us back from our success. And I know because I've been there. I mean, I'm not somebody that just popped up one day and made $1 million. This has been a long struggle, a long road for me, and I've gone through a lot of things, and I completely understand what it's like. I understand what it's like to struggle and feel frustrated and seeing everybody else, succeed where it's real tough for us. But it's really just because I was following the wrong path. I was trying to do everything and figure everything out myself. I got stuck into the shiny object syndrome where I kept, buying this and buying that. And it wasn't really until I hired a mentor that, really changed everything for me. And that's really why I put this training here together for you, because I completely understand. And it's why, I'm going to help you and show you that you can finally do it too. And I believe that you're great. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And I believe that you can do this. You can reach for the sky. The sky's the limit, as they say. And, I also believe that you can do this because success is not a secret. What I found is that success is really a system. So in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can easily sell with confidence. And I want to show you and teach you my system so that you can get more clients and make more money in your business today. And it really comes down to this key thing here, is that regardless of whether we, end up working together or not, I just encourage you to have the courage to take action on the things that you learn here today. Is that fair? So what are you going to learn? Like I said, I've worked with a lot of top experts, and I figured out the 6 to 7 figure lead generation model. So I'm going to share that with you. It's really simple. And then I'm going to teach you my position sales enrollment formula. It's going to really teach you the easy way to ask for the sale even if it's the first time you've ever spoke to somebody. And it's not pressure. There's no pressure. It's not salesy or anything like that. And then we'll talk about the next step for your success. It's taken me a long time to really go through and learn all this stuff. In fact, my clients hire me for 3, 6, 12 months. So I'm going to really try to condense a lot of stuff that I've learned into a very short period of time. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we're just scratching the surface. Now, my ideal client is somebody that wants to grow their existing business now. They see the value in investing in mentoring now, and they're willing, able, and ready to invest in mentoring now because they want to double their business. And at the end of our training today, I'm not going to ask you to pay anything. I'm not going to ask you to put your credit card number out or anything like that. So put your credit card away. But I do have a special offer, and if you'd like to continue on with the training that we have here today, if you'd like to continue on, then I've got a special offer for you, and I encourage you to take advantage of that. So let me ask you a question. What would you do with thousands of extra dollars each month? Would you take a vacation? Would you buy a new car? Would you buy some jewelry? What would you do? So just imagine for a moment how you'd feel and how your life would be better if you did double or even tripled your clients and your sales and your business each month, so you could do things like that. How would that feel to you? You'd probably feel pretty happy, right? Well, you've probably heard that success focuses around how you position yourself in the marketplace. And that's exactly why I call this the position enrollment formula. So we're going to first start talking about the pre-sales and the mindset. I just love this lesson because this is really where a lot of people get hung up in their business and in their sales process. So this is really the first part that we talked about. Okay, so your pre-sales is really everything that happens before you speak to your prospect or your client. It's really how you drive traffic to your business, and it's really how you get leads. We call this your marketing. And some of the ways that you can get leads to come in through your marketing are you can do, public speaking, which is a great way. You can do direct mail campaigns. You can do online ads. You can do social media. There's a lot of different ways that you can generate the lead, and there are some very low cost ways. For instance, Facebook has a really great tool, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're really not going to understand how to use it properly, and maybe you've even used some of these things and they haven't worked for you. And again, it's just because you've done it and it hasn't worked for you doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're learning, and it really just means that you haven't found the right path yet. You're still just following the wrong path. So good marketing really pre-sells and educates your audience on what we believe, what we do, who we can help, why we can help them, and what the next steps are. And if you get that right, your leads will be pre-sold on doing business with you, and they're more likely for you to go forward today. So here's a quick 3-step overview. Your marketing, it really is your lead generation or how you drive your traffic. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. Then you have some sort of offer, and usually the way it works is that you go from something free to something paid. And these could be like an ebook, a video, a strategy session. It's kind of what we're doing here today. You're getting kind of a free experience. That's the cool thing about your offer around an event, is that they get to experience you. And then you can monetize it by just simply asking them for the sale. This is really where your lead becomes the client. And in the marketing world, we call it the front end. Then you upsell them to something, and then you have something on the back end like coaching. So here's, like I mentioned in the beginning, I've worked with a lot of high-end consultants, experts, and this is the typical funnel. Is you have an offer around a free event that educates your audience, and then you invite those people to apply for a free consultation or something where you can get on the phone and see if it's a good fit. This is where they experience you one-on-one, and then during that conversation you enroll them into your higher price programs, product, or services via that conversation. Now, what do you do when a lead goes through your funnel? And do you even have a funnel? So, once you generate a lead, how do you enroll people into your programs, products, and services? Well, regardless of what method that you use to generate your leads, you're going to eventually have to have a conversation with people to enroll them, especially into high-priced programs, products, or services. You really can't sell, $2,000, $5,000, $10, $20, $50, $100,000 programs without actually having a conversation with something. This isn't, where you put a buy now button up and they invest. It just doesn't work that way. So here's really the 6 to 7 figure lead generation model. It's a 3-step approach, and you have an event, then you invite people to have a conversation, and then during that conversation you offer your products and services to them, and you enroll them into what you've got. So it's a really simple formula. Now, the next part of this first step is the mindset. The mindset is really what holds people back. And you first have to decide what you want and why you really want it. You need to do this for yourself first, because you, as a sales consultant, regardless of what you sell, you're going to need to do this with your clients as well. So you've got to learn how to do it with yourself first. This is what I call the inner game versus the outer game. I have a friend that teaches something called the game theory, and it's really funny because I actually think of this process as a game, and we have to set up boundaries. It lays the foundation for a game, and if we really want to see changes on the outside, we must first make those changes on the inside. So really, you're the key to your success. Your financial success really depends on how you see yourself. Like this woman, she obviously looks very happy. You can just see she's radiant, she's glowing, she's got a nice smile. You can see it in her eyes. And then, on the other side, we have somebody like this where they don't look happy. You can kind of see it in their body language. So really, it's up to you. And the key to this is that you have the ability to choose. So why do people get stuck? Well, it's really because of fear. And you've probably heard this: false evidence appearing real. And there's really nothing to fear but fear itself. So if we get rid of the fear, there's nothing left to fear. So if we get rid of those old beliefs, the ideas, worry, doubt, fear, you got to get rid of them because they're your enemy. And you got to focus on what you're doing now. If you're focusing on things that happened in the past, you're not focusing on what you're doing now. And really this comes down to that we need a clear mind, especially when we go into our conversations with people. We really need to have a clear mind, and there's a simple way to do that. So how do we clear our mind? Well, what I teach people to do is just real simple. You can do this in 30 seconds. Before you get on a call with somebody, you can take a deep breath, hold it to like 8 seconds, the mental count of 8, and then slowly release it. I like to count from 8 back down to 0, and do that 3 times. And what that's going to do is it's going to get oxygen flowing through your brain, and it's going to really calm you down and make you more relaxed. And in fact, you could even do this with your clients, because you're going to want them to be relaxed as well. So it's really simple, and the reason we do this is because, like we just talked about, all those old things. We don't want to bring any of that, what I call mental garbage, back into our meetings and our appointments. We really want to have a clear mind when we go in and we talk to somebody, and we don't want to talk or think about anything other than how we can help our prospects, right? And we really want them to like us and believe what we believe, because, it's said that people do business with those that believe what we believe. Kind of like, Martin Luther King. He didn't talk about what he does or what the problem is or how to fix it or what the problems in the countries were and how to change things. What he did was talked about his dream. It was his belief. That's what we call his why. His why generated a lot of people out there that believed what he believed. So that's really the other key here, and really those are the real keys to your sales successes too. So it's about selling on the conscious level. These are the things like what we say and how we say them, but it's also on the subconscious level, why we say these things as well. And how we say things is pretty important, but it's really more than what we say. And so this leads us into the second part of the training. What do you do after your lead comes in? So you've done your marketing, you've kind of, mellowed out, you got your mindset in control, you know what you're supposed to be doing. So what do you do when the lead comes in? Now this is really where we get into the key of the position enrollment formula, because this is really when we start talking to somebody on the phone. And I call it the opening frame control. Now another term for this could be a 2-minute verbal agreement. And really frame control, it establishes the alpha of the group. And if like in a group of dogs, there's one dog that's going to become the alpha. That's kind of the same thing here, is we kind of have personalities and mind frames that collide, especially if we're all A-type personalities. A lot of people in business are A-type personalities, and if we have two A-type personalities, one of them is going to want to dominate and lead. And so what I've found, the way that to really establish this frame control and become the alpha of the group, it's really easiest around time. And we've all heard of a time frame. So it's easiest around time. It can happen really fast, and it really positions us to subtly lead and allows us to focus on our prospects' goals and transformations. That's really why they're there. So why are you there? What's your goal? Well, I'll tell you, your goal is just to simply move prospects to the next step in the sales process. That's why I call it the position formula, because right now we're in the O. The next step is the S. So we don't want to talk about investment or anything else before we get through these steps. And so that's your goal. And the opening agreement really, it takes 1 to 2 minutes, and you do this up front and really sets the ground rules for the game. It moves you easily through each of these steps, and it allows you and positions you to confidently ask for the sale at the end of the call. There's no sales pressure. It's not being pushy. So why do we do this? Well, like we just said, it establishes the ground rules for the call or the appointment. This is why I call it positioning or framing or perspective. All those words are synonymous. And it allows us to establish the boundaries for our call. When we play a game, we want to know where the boundaries are. Well, the same thing with our call. When we set up boundaries, and the cool thing is that the person that sets up the ground rules usually is the one that's leading. The person that asks the questions is the one that leads. So in our opening frame control, we talked about it positions us as the leader. And so, hey, what I'd like to do in the next 30 minutes, what I'd like to do in the next 60 minutes is this. I'd like to find out a little bit more about you. I'd like to find out more about your business. I'd like to ask you some questions, maybe see where some of the challenges are that you're going through. And then I'd like to, tell you a little bit about some of the solutions that we have. If there's a good fit, I can tell you about some of the solutions that we got. And, if there's a good fit, I can tell you about some of those options at that time. Is that fair? So what we're doing is we're kind of creating a verbal agreement, but at the same time, we're creating a mental agreement. And this is really key because we're having a conversation on both the subconscious and the conscious level. And when we ask them, hey, is that okay? Can we do all this? They're saying yes. They're actually giving us permission to do that. Once they say yes, that's fair, or yes, that's okay, we've really established the frame control, and it's because they've given us permission. And the key here is that whoever answers the question loses frame control. So if you ask the question and you say, this is what I'd like to do, is that fair? They're going to say yes. On the subconscious level, they're giving you permission to lead. That's because it's like the group of dogs. You now have the alpha status. So this is what I found is one of the easiest things to do. I don't know why there's not a lot of people that teach this step, but it's really simple, and it's one of the most important things to your sales success. And it just allows us to easily move on to that next step, and there's no pressure. Again, it's very quick and it's very easy. And this is really the step that helps us to establish, likability and gets them to like us and trust us, which is very key. People like to do business with those that they know, like, and trust. And so in our coaching session, if you were to hire me and go through coaching, this is why I also think coaching is very important, because we actually get to practice and work specifically on your business. Everybody's got their own business. There's not a one-size-fits-all problem, so there's not a one-size-fits-all solution, which is really why mentoring is very important. So this is really where we would go through and we'd practice this so that you understand it, so that every time that you talk to somebody, it's the same exact way every time. So once you establish that opening frame control and they've given you permission to move on to the next step to find out about them, this is where the S comes in. It's seeking out pain. we're not talking about physical pain. We're talking about emotional pain. So we really want to find the things that are buried deep inside of them and bring that out. And so why do we focus on emotional pain? Because people are more likely to take action to relieve pain rather than to move towards pleasure or gain. And right now we want to be their doctor. We really want to find out where it hurts and find out, why they're speaking to us. Remember we talked about that initially? It's the why. This is really where we want to establish the why. And in order for us to prescribe the solution, we must first seek and diagnose their problems, challenges, and pain. And like any doctor would do, we diagnose the pain first and then we prescribe a solution. In fact, you can't prescribe something that you haven't diagnosed because you don't really know if it's the right prescription. So seeking emotional pain, and this is something that might happen. I've actually spoken to people and we've established so much pain and it's been buried for so deep and they haven't really opened up to anybody. And this is the thing, is when they do open up to you, they may end up crying. They may have so much emotional pain that they end up crying, and it's okay because we want to get that out. Because what happens after we cry? We feel better. And that's kind of the next step, is making them feel better. So really the whole point here is we want to find the gap, right? We want to find out where they are, which is point A, and where they want to be, which is point B. And what we want to do is we want to make this gap really wide. So how do we do that? We do that by asking these questions. And there's a lot of different questions that we can go through. Again, why coaching is important, because you can ask the questions that pertain specifically to your business. Some of these questions could be like, who else is involved, or what's your actual problem, and why is that a problem? Why is that important to you? And where does it hurt? Where are the pains that you're seeing? And when did this happen? How long have you had this pain? So there's a lot of different questions that we could really come up with and ask. And it's really important to find that emotional pain. And the cool thing is once you get to a certain point, you'll have a conversation, you'll hear like this pause, and they'll say something like, Preston, here's the real problem. And then boom, that's when you've got it. It's that pause, the deep breath, the sigh, and then they say your name, or they say, hey, here's the real problem. So really what we need to do is we need to get them to that point where they do open up to us, they tell us really what their pain is, and then we have to get them to feel better. We got to show them that there's possibilities, hope, and something better for the future. So why do we do this? Because people make decisions based on how they feel, and based on how something makes them feel. And so you can't hurt them and then expect to sell to them. You can't leave them in that pain state and try to sell them something. So we have to really come back and make them feel better. We have to inspire them, right? And this is what I call bridging the gap. You become the bridge. You become like the mover. You help them cross the bridge. You build that bridge for them, and you get them from point A to point B. And this is the key, is that inspiration leads to motivation. And that's why the next step is I. It's how we inspire and we show them possibilities. Inspiring them, like we just talked about, is you can't leave them in that pain state. So we need to make them feel better. And reason why we do this is because the brain can only think of one thing at a time. I mean, we might be able to think of things in, fractions of a second, but still they're only one at a time. So when they're thinking about pain, they're not thinking about pleasure. And we got to show them what the future could be like with our help. This is where we want to talk about what they want and why they want it. Their why is what inspires them to take action now. So remember, through this whole process, our goal is just to keep moving them on through the next step. And that's why this enrollment conversation is really so important to master and to get right. It's really the foundation to get your prospects to go forward and work together with you. And we do that with some questions as well. We talk about, well, what does the future look like for you? Tell me a little bit about what you want, and that's how we get them to inspire. So we want to end on possibilities. That's kind of the key. And once we found their pain, and we found out what they want, and show them that there are some possibilities that they can actually achieve the goals that they want, then we focus on transition. And transition is just really getting them on a new path. They can continue down the same path that they've been, but what's that been like for them? What's the result been like? What's it really costing them to continue doing the same thing? But why do we need a transition step? Because it's said that people won't do business or go forward unless they know that you understand them. So the transition is really understanding them and showing them that we understand them. And we call this empathy. And we empathize to show that we understand their pain, and what it does is it positions us as the solution to their problem. The whole goal here is just to get a yes response. And so the way that this might look is, hey Mary, I really appreciate you sharing all that with me today. What I'm hearing you say is that you've got a challenge with A, B, and C, and these are the things that they've told you. And that you really want, and whatever the result that they want, is to double your business over the next 12 months. Is that correct? Is that everything? And you want them to say yes. And now you can move to the next step and talk about you. This is where you can talk about how you can help them and what you've got. And again, there's so many different ways that we can do transitions based on your niche and the products or services that you have, what you're selling. And it's just a simple phrase, something simple that now tells them and shows them that we understand them. And really, this is kind of why one-on-one coaching is important. It's a lot different even than just doing a home study course just by going through and learning this information. It's about why. There's specifics to each person's business and why the coaching is very important. So once we transition and we get them to say yes, and they know that we understand them, it's not, it's telling them that we've been listening to them. Now we can talk about the investment stage. And this is really where you get to offer your solution. So really, if you've asked the right questions, you've found their emotional pains, you found their possibilities of what they want to happen, and you can verbalize those pains back to them and really show them that you understand them, now you can just ask for the sale. You can transition to your offer and simply ask them if they want to see how you can help them. And there's really no closing here. This is one of the things a lot of people teach, closing techniques. Well, I really teach opening techniques. I mean, if you've done all these steps, then you can easily ask for the sale. And if you want a GET, you got to ASK. Okay? And here's something that's pretty shocking: is a lot of people don't ever ask for the sale. The whole reason is it's based around fear. We fear people saying no to us. It's really fear of rejection. People don't like to be rejected. So, the whole key here is that you don't have to fear the word no, and in fact, you shouldn't take it personally. So I have some steps here that makes it easy. I call it my TORA steps, TORA. So the first one, T, is the transition sentence. So, hey, so if we could help you out with this, would that be valuable to you? Yes. Great. Now I've got some options for you. Would you like to hear about some of the options that I got that can help you out? Yeah, great. Well, here's option one. Option one is this. This is the investment. Option two is this. This is the investment. Now, I recommend that you take option two because this is what we just talked about. This is the thing that's really going to help you out. So recommendation and reason why. And then again, you got to ASK to GET. And you just ask them, say, which of these options works best for you? Now, through that process, do you feel like you're being sold? Do you feel like you're being pushy? It's really simple. And we can really double our business in this step. When we really know how to structure our options, we really can get a lot more money to come into us while helping them. These are the steps in our investment. Transition, offer your options, have a recommendation and reason why, and then just simply ask them which of those options works best for them. And if they answer yes, then you say, great, give me your credit card number. Let's get you signed up right now. And if they say no, then you really just want to ask why, and you can find out I have a formula that we're going to talk about in the next step, which is the objections. Now in the objection step, the real objections are around time and around money. Okay, if people want it, they're going to buy it. They'll find the time and they'll find the money because emotion is stronger than logic. And once their value or their want is greater than your price or what they're going to invest in, they'll buy and then they'll invest with you. And on the other side, if value isn't greater than your price or your investment, then they'll just feel okay with staying where they are. And this is why the previous steps are very important. Is you got to find that pain. You got to find out really what's it costing them to stay where they are. Are they willing to just continue down and losing all this extra money if they continue on that path and they don't invest with you? So what's the cost? Where's the value at? And remember this, people love to invest and they love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And that's the cool thing about my training is that I don't really teach you how to close deals and how to be a salesy person. What I teach you is how to have a conversation with people, how to get people to know you, like you, trust you, and to find the people that believe in what you believe. Just like why you're here with me today. I want you to experience something and maybe you'll hear the passion in my voice, or maybe you'll connect with something. I don't know what it is. Usually I'll have a conversation with somebody and they'll be like, "Oh, Preston, one thing you just said just sparked something in my mind." And those are the reason, one of the main reasons why I do this is I love those inspirational moments. I love to be the catalyst for that inspiration. So the 4-step objection solution is, you empathize with them, you ask them a question, you see if you can come up with an alternative solution, and then just ask for the sale again. And those are really the main steps of the position enrollment formula. And the next step is really, you got to get their commitment and their payment. Once they say yes, I see a lot of people, they really screw this up, is that they say, well, I'll send you a contract in a couple of days. Or, let me give you a quote. Let me give you some contract or something. I mean, you still want to get all that stuff, but you really want to get their payment right now. And that's the way we get people to commit, is by them paying. So you don't want logic to really set in and get them to think about it. You really want their emotions to kind of be in play here, and you want them to commit right now to you. You want them to say yes. And this is where you can also offer an upsell. You can say, by the way, we also have these other options. This one, if you add this on, it's really complimentary, and we can do that for you. Or, they do this in car sales all the time. Hey, would you like the extra warranty? The classic example is, hey, would you like some fries with that? It's the classic upsell. Is there anything else that I can do for you? And then there's a downsell. Like I mentioned, I've got one-on-one coaching. I've also got a group coaching program, and I record, the lessons, which each of those are a lot less expensive than the private one-on-one, but also, the results are going to kind of vary as well. In fact, a lot of the people that go forward with the home study training, they learn the steps, they actually come back and they apply for the one-on-one, and they learn the exact same things, but we just do this where we're having a conversation with each other and apply it specifically to their business. Then you got to fulfill on what you sold them, and that sometimes includes things like customer service. And then we always want to follow up. That's why I say we're not closing deals; we're really opening relationships. So you want to follow up with people all the time, give them thanks. Thank you so much for investing. Is there anything else I can help you with? And just ask them. And that stuff will lead to more referrals, joint venture partners, and affiliates, and kind of help with your lead generation. So those are really the 8 steps in the position enrollment formula. And what you learned today in this training is a 6 to 7 figure lead generation model. I taught you the position sales enrollment formula. And really my mission in life is to help you and everyone who needs my help become more successful in both business and in life. And also to teach you how to become a master salesperson. This is something that I'm really passionate about. And to become a master salesperson, I believe you need this. And I don't care what you sell, okay? My simple position formula can help just about anybody in only a few hours. That's the cool thing. And so if you're struggling in your business or in your life, it's only because you haven't really figured out how to effectively sell. And we're selling all the time. From the time that we're born, we start crying. We're selling for attention. We're selling for something. So, like I mentioned, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I went through this pretty quickly. Just wanted you to kind of see the overview of all this. There's so many more things like NLP and frame control and each of these steps, like how to structure all this stuff specifically for your business. So, we just scratched the surface here today. And I told you that at the end of the training that I'd have a special offer for you. And it's really for, my ideal clients who are people that want to grow their business now. They see the value in investing and mentoring now, and they're willing, able, and ready to invest in mentoring now because they do want to double their sales. They think that that's, really going to change their life, and I can certainly help with that. So if that's you, your next step now is, well, have you considered coaching? People say that 98% who have tried coaching have actually received value from their session. So coaching really helps overcome problems and challenges quickly and easily, and it gets you the help that you need to help bridge that gap. We talked about that. It helps you to get from where you are to where you want to be. And I know that there's a lot of information in this training today. We went through it really quickly, and a lot of this stuff can get overwhelming. What to say when and how to say it and how to structure this. And I know that. So you have really 2 options. You can, do it all alone, and most likely, you've been doing it on your own. And if that's the case, I just want you to leave inspired. I really want you to take the information that you learned here today and take action with that information. But also think about, what's it costing you to stay where you are and continue to try doing all this stuff on your own? What's that costing you? Or the second option is that you can get some help. And if you'd like to transform your business and your life, I'd like to offer you some help. So here's the solution that I've got for you. It's my sales training or sales coaching program. So your fastest path to success in your business is just taking the steps that we went over today, modeling them for your business, and just letting me guide you through the whole process. I'll take you, by the hand and lead you step by step through the whole process. And if I did that, would that be valuable to you? And if it's a yes and you're ready to take action and you're ready to step up and take action now, then I recommend that you attend my Double Your Sales coaching session now, because I guarantee that if you do this with me, that you'll get at least one strategy that can double your business. Now, I do have to limit this. I can't really do this for everyone, so I'm limiting this with my personal help to the first 10 people that respond to this. I believe this will work for you, because I've worked with and consulted with and coached some of the top experts in the world, and I've, like I mentioned before, I've made a lot of money for people, I've made a lot of money for myself, and I guarantee that this will work for you too. So, I guarantee that you're going to leave our 60-minute call, our 60-minute Double Your Sales coaching call, with at least one strategy that could get you more clients and help you to double your business. So how does that sound? And I will ask you at the end of our time, just as I taught you today, I'm going to ask you, I do what I preach, I practice what I preach. So I'm going to ask you to make a commitment, and make a decision to invest in either my 8-week private one-on-one sales training. And the second option is, if there's enough people for a group coaching, we'll put a group coaching program together where you don't get as much one-on-one with me, but I still teach you the lesson, and then I open up the call at the end of the training, and you can even send me questions that pertain to your business, and we can go over those on the group coaching. Or, like I mentioned earlier, I've got the recorded home study version, which you don't get any private one-on-one with me. Well, I will as a bonus. I'll tell you what, if anybody wants to do a recorded home study version, I'll give you an extra private hour with me, on the phone, one-on-one. So, but I will make you, ask you to make a decision to invest. And that's what I teach, so I'll do it with you as well. And I'd like you to invest into paid training. This is really going to help you out. And if it's a fit, cool. I'll sign you up and we'll get you started right away. And if it's not a fit for you, that's cool too. If that's something that you're interested in doing, then let's have a conversation. Go here right now to prestonrahn.com/strategy and fill out the form. There's a few questions on there that I want you to go through and answer. And we'll get on the call. We'll spend an hour together. I'll go through and teach you some cool stuff, work up a plan with you, and give you, like I said, at least one strategy that you can take that could at least double your business. So is that fair? If that's something you'd like to do, then go here right now, prestonrahn.com/strategy, fill out the form, and let's set a time to get on the phone, okay? So have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll talk with you soon.